Good afternoon, gorgeous humans. It is wonderful to be back. Fridays are where the weekend starts, right? Especially when you tune into Project Woman. Now, unfortunately, I do not have my co-pilot Faye Reid here with me today, but I've got an awesome woman joining me, Ruth Ramsay, who I met through goodness, Ruth. It was through a networking community called Found and Flourish. And I've had the honour of talking with Ruth on many occasions and listening to her words of wisdom. Ruth is an adult sex educator and coach. She helps people of all genders understand who they are sexually, how their bodies and minds work, what they need in bed, and how to communicate that. Her coaching style is shame-free and pleasure-led. Bring on the pleasure-led. That is what I say, Ruth. More pleasure. I mean, just reading that, when it was to find out what you like in bed, my little one of my inner voices went, oh, we can't talk about that in public, can we? Yes, we can. Absolutely.
Yes, we can. So let's do that.
So tell us a bit about you, love. Why sex? What got you here?
Well, it's just an area of life that I've always felt comfortable in, even when I felt challenged in other areas, and that I've felt very, very much led to explore and share. So it manifested first of all in me ditching a career in fashion journalism to go and become a striptease artist, which was a fantasy that I'd had since I'd been quite a young girl. And yeah, in my mid-20s, I had at the start of a glittering fashion journalism career, I had the opportunity to do striptease classes and went and did them. And then that led to me actually becoming a striptease artist. And for 14 years, I stripped, I modelled, I ran events. I became very involved in activism around the sex industry and around the rights of people who are denied erotic recognition, particularly people with physical disabilities. And I did all sorts of stuff for that time. Then came out of it because I met and fell in love with someone to be with whom meant leaving the city, leaving the stage, just for practical reasons, moving to a tiny little village and becoming a stepmom. So I had these years out that were not what I had foreseen in my life. But then once my stepkids were going off to uni and old enough to know stepmom used to be a stripper and this kind of thing, I allowed myself to feel just how much I was almost running on autopilot. I wanted to be back in the erotic world, basically, and wasn't sure quite how to at that point in my early 40s in a tiny little village in the middle of nowhere. But I did a life coaching diploma, and then someone said, will you coach me around sex? And that was this incredible light bulb moment that I could combine the transformational coaching. And I did a 9-month diploma, so it wasn't one of these become a life coach in a weekend things. I could combine what I'd learned on that transformational coaching diploma with my life experience to offer coaching around this. And then people were interested. I started doing chats like this. And people started asking me, what is this truly about? You know, what's your life purpose with this? I realized, thinking about that question, that it is the promotion of sexual energy as a force for good. So I feel that when I was doing striptease, that's what I was doing. I was entertaining, but I was also healing, and I was educating and doing all sorts of stuff in that space. And now as a coach, it's all about helping people to get rid of the shame around sex, be able to talk about it, and recognize that it can and should be this, as I say, this incredible wellness tool and force for good in our lives. So that's how I've got here.
You said earlier on, just a moment ago, that it was a fantasy of yours from a young girl. But what made you go to do the PR instead of going straight towards the striptease? and the
What made you
erotic
do
side?
journalism?
Journalism, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, what made you go to the journalism?
well, in my teens, I was the bullied loner who never ever had a boyfriend. I wanted a boyfriend so much from when I was about 8 or 9. Never had one all through school. I wasn't kissed until I was almost 18. And if you told me when I was like 14, 15, you can actually become a striptease artist, I just wouldn't have believed you. And also, when you're having career chats at school, you don't exactly say, oh, my fantasy. My fantasy was to become a stripper and marry a rock star and have tattoos instead of wedding rings. That's what I wanted.
Well, I would have passed you straight away. Go forth.
Yeah. But no, I didn't tell anyone, you know. I never told anyone. I thought it was just this thing that would always remain a fantasy. But my other love was writing. So I was born in 75. And I was subscribing to Marie Claire magazine from the late 80s. And I don't know if you or anyone watching this remembers, at that time, it was an incredibly powerful magazine, Marie Claire. Amazing journalism. It won the Amnesty Press Award. I don't know how many years in a row, but it kept winning the Amnesty Press Award. It was very, very hard-hitting journalism around women's issues. They didn't shy away from sex as an issue, and from looking at sex in a very broad sense. It wasn't Cosmopolitan magazine style sex tips. They would look at sexual rights of women in China, for example, all this kind of fascinating stuff. And I absolutely loved writing, and I still do. So feeling that I couldn't go and become a striptease artist, the other thing that I wanted to do was write. So I did a journalism degree. I'll also add that I was pushed very hard academically. I wasn't from an academic family, and to have the opportunity to actually go and do a degree was quite incredible and very exciting for the whole family. So I was pushed hard academically. I managed to get a place on what was at the time the most competitive and the best journalism degree in the country at London College of Printing. And so that's what I did. And then from there, initially went into financial journalism because you just took the first job you could get. And then from there, managed to get an opportunity to go into fashion business journalism, which was interesting, and beauty journalism as well, which I loved. And that's where it looked like my career path was going to go. So I'm 47 now. If you'd asked me when I was, say, 23, 24, where would you like to be when you're 47? I would have said deputy editor or editor of Marie Claire. That's kind of where that journalism path was going. But as I say, I saw an advert for London School of Striptease, which at the time was brand new. This is like 2001. And it was, striptease lessons. We hear about them now. If you want to do striptease or burlesque or anything online, you just go into Google and there'll be stuff. But at this point, 2001, it was unheard of. But I was doing some fitness classes at a studio on Oxford Street in London. And I was there one day and saw a poster up, a flyer up on the notice board, London School of Striptease, new classes. So I thought, well, let's just go and explore this fantasy. At the time, I was shy physically. I wouldn't get changed in a communal changing room in women's clothes shops. I would queue for the cubicle. I didn't like taking my clothes off in front of anyone. And I thought, yeah, let's go and explore this fantasy of being a striptease artist. And so then from the journalism heading towards editor of Marie Claire in my late 40s, early 50s, it suddenly went off to striptease instead. Yeah.
Do you know what I love? Basically, what you've highlighted for me there is you didn't know that this existed. You just thought it was a fantasy. And how, when we don't believe something is true, we will fall into the groove of what is already there, and we will find our groove, even if it's not our own. I remember my mum and stepdad having the Madonna sex book, and it was a secret that I knew about because I used to go through my mum and stepdad's stuff. as you did as a kid.
Of course.
And I remember when they was often ever, and I would look through this book and I would think, wow, what is she doing? Like, this is amazing. Like, the picture, she looks so powerful. And then I got caught with the book and I got told off. And immediately there was this shame that set in around what that signified. A woman being naked in her power, flaunting herself in the most provocative pictures was a bad thing. Which brings me on to this, our topic that we discussed offline, which is the shame around sex. I mean, are us Brits really that timid in the bedroom, or are we just making believe and we're not letting on exactly what's going on? What's happening, Ruth, under the bed sheets?
Well, obviously I'm not in the bedroom with everyone in the UK.
Just making that clear. Just making that clear.
When I say I'm a sex coach, actually, something that's quite funny, a lot of people have only heard the term coach in the context of sports, football coach, tennis coach, or whatever. And I say I'm a sex coach, and like you see all this stuff go across. Like, so are you like in the bedroom with your clients, like telling them what to do? Like, no.
Ready, steady, go.
Yeah, left a bit, right a bit. No, there's surveys that go around about what are people getting up to in the bedrooms, but they're not exactly scientific. So I mean, people I speak to are up for having help. So they are in a certain mindset already. But from what I see, there's a disconnect between what people are doing and what people want to be doing. People want to be having more playful, more adventurous, more kinky sex lives typically than they are actually having. That's what I see among my UK-based clients.
So where'd you go from there? I mean, where do you go from there? How do you move through that? Because when you look at our society, it's still pretty much there, isn't it? The kind of stiff upper lip, we don't let off, we keep our emotions still. I mean, we're getting there as a united front in the country. But it's like I said earlier about grooves, it's hard to get out of that groove, isn't it?
Yeah. I think a lot of people feel they need some kind of permission from the mainstream to explore certain things. So 50 Shades of Grey is a fantastic example of this. So whether you love or hate the books or the films, whether you feel they drastically misrepresent the BDSM and kink community or not, it cannot be denied that it made kink play something that it was acceptable to talk about wanting. And you know, since then, I don't know how long it was before the range of 50 Shades of Grey accessories went into Anne Summers, but you know, you can now go into a high street sex shop and buy nicely packaged BDSM equipment basically because of that film. So that's an example of, as I say, the mainstream saying this can be part of your sex life, meaning that people then felt able to go and explore it. I think if we had an equivalent with threesomes or anything like that, then again, it's that permission that people feel they need. Oh, I'm not weird. With 50 Shades, actually, you saying about the sex book, I heard a few people, or quite a few cases, where a mum would have it and the teenage daughter would have it, and they'd both be keeping the book secret from each other, like, mum mustn't know I'm reading this. And the mum going, my daughter mustn't know I'm reading this. It was a cross-generational thing, 50 Shades, that made it far more acceptable to be interested in kink. So yeah, the more we're seeing in the mainstream, the more people will feel that they have permission to explore those.
And when we talk about exploration, who do you find more responsive to it? Is it women or men? Who's looking for who needs more permission, women or men?
I would say women need more permission simply to want sex and to put themselves forward as like fully engaged agents in that scenario, who can say what they want, what they don't want, when they want something different, a new thing that they want to try. Whereas what I see with men is that they feel very strongly they need to fit what they've been told by mainstream culture a sexual, heterosexual man should be like. Are you familiar with a concept called the erotic blueprints?
No, tell me more.
Okay, so the blueprints were put together several years ago, initially by a sexologist in the US called Jaya, Jaiya. She's becoming more famous because she was on Sex, Love, Goop, the fantastic series on Netflix that came out last year. And she proposes that we have 5 blueprints, that there are 5 blueprints, sorry, that each have their strong side and their shadow side, and that each of us will have one dominant blueprint, or maybe 1 to 2 dominant blueprints. And there's a quiz that initially was paper-based. It's now online that you can do. She's had, I think, nearly 100,000 people do the online quiz. And the 5 blueprints are sensual, so very turned on by scent, visual, sound, etc., etc. Energetic, and the best description for this one is more turned on by the anticipation of a kiss than by the kiss actually landing. There's the kinky blueprint, which isn't quite how it sounds. Kinky is about getting turned on by things that you consider taboo. So for one person, that might be anything outside of missionary position. For another person, that could be what we think of as kink, whips, chains, etc., etc. So where are we? Sensual, yeah, energetic, kinky, sexual. The sexual blueprint is turned on by genitals, intercourse, orgasms, naked bodies, that kind of stuff. And then the last blueprint is the shapeshifter, which can move between all of those. And heterosexual men in Western culture are told that they have to match the sexual blueprint. They have to like tits and legs. They have to want penetration. They have to be turned on by porn. They must be up for it all the time. Whereas actually what Jaya's research shows, where she's collecting all of the online, you do it anonymously, and you get your results, but her algorithm or whatever is collecting all the results as well, is that there's a pretty equal split through the genders of these different blueprints. So of the 5, men are being told you must be like this. And what they need, and what they explore generally through coaching, is the permission to be other than that. To say, actually, I want a bedroom with silks and scented candles and things. That's what's going to work for me. Or I need to take things really slowly. Or I need to be teased. All these things that we associate with female sexuality, that men feel that they're not a real man if they want all of that stuff. So for men, it's broadening beyond the stereotypical heterosexual male sexuality. For women, it's feeling that they can ask for and explore anything to do with sex, really.
I mean, that's an eye-opener, isn't it? But
I'll just share
it
as another example of that. One of my first ever one-to-one coaching clients, she described her male partner. I said, tell me about your partner. And she said, oh, he's a typical Western male, pretty basic, you know. And I use that as a quote on my Instagram. I gave her the blueprints exercise, with full credit to Jaya, to do as homework. And in our next session, I said, how did that go? And she said, Ruth, it wasn't my results that were mind-blowing. I got my partner to do them. And he is fully the sensual blueprint. He was trying to live as the sexual blueprint. And because that's what he was told he should be. And this is a couple who are American. And I think it's an even stronger blueprint there you must be like this to be a real man. And she was like, I've got no idea. And what I said, she recalled what she said. I said he was pretty basic, and it turns out he's not at all. So yeah, it can be mind-blowing. Just one simple exercise.
It just that just makes it because we are uncovering so much of the status quo, aren't we? Which is just, it's like a concrete prism. When you look at what you should be, and some of the time, well, not, it's like 99% of the time, people don't even realize it. They think that that's actually what they are, isn't it? Until they have this kind of opportunity to see, oh, that's not what I am at all. So how does that impact the rest of my life? And this is what I come up with regards to the feminine health of the menstrual cycle and the emotional shifts. When you are numb to the rhythms that naturally occur within you, your communication becomes so disjointed and to a certain extent incomprehensible to the outside world, because it doesn't make any sense. And, you know, for me, I always say, this is a very small part of your communication, isn't it? What comes out of your mouth is very small in comparison to this. This is communicating all the time. And the fact that the energy just doesn't stop at the skin, you know, but we've completely closed the lens to that, haven't we? And what you're bringing up now with regards to this sexual energy, you know, I'm sitting here talking to you, and I'm constantly thinking about me and my husband. You know, I'll be honest with you, that what comes up for me a lot of the time as I come into, you know, this perimenopausal window, hormones and emotions are shifting and changing, and I am looking after myself, but sometimes stuff comes up, right? And I think to myself, are you having a laugh? The last thing I want right now is sex. Are you kidding? I have been running around after 2 children. I have been doing this. Da 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 da. I just want to sit down. I just want to sit down. Not even listen to anything. I just want to lie on the floor, actually, and just be left alone. And then, but the guilt from that, because inside my head is going, well, you should probably give him some sex because he hasn't had sex for a while. You know, it's not really fair. I mean, that's not really like the voices. The voices that come up, I mean, it can drive you crazy, can't it? And this is this distorted communication about our sexual energy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm interested when you're coaching women around health, and I know you do talk quite openly about sex, how do you find that lands with them?
I do get a lot of, I get a lot of silence. And there is this, it's almost like an internalization, you know, with regards to if I am confronting something, you know, and you have to tread where this person is willing to go. Otherwise, it's just not going to go anywhere, is it? But I find that there is a lot of, well, it's the flip of a coin, a lot of silence, and I need to look into that. Or, oh my God, like, I can't believe, I totally know what you're talking about. Oh my God, you know, it's that, isn't it? It's that there is no, excuse the pun, shade of grey, really, I don't find. It is generally one or the other. They're either really willing to go into it and wanting it or not. What about you?
Well, by the nature of the people I speak to, they are willing to go there, but that doesn't mean that it's easy for them. Every so often I do rounds of research chats where I find women who are up for spending half an hour answering 5 questions about their sex life. And I say to them, it's not coaching. I'm not then going to coach you around the answers. I will ask you a few questions, and it does go a bit coaching sometimes. But what I'm going to be doing is giving you a space just to think about and talk about these things, judgment free. At the end, you can ask me any questions, like any questions about sex. And what's in it for me is it helps me stay on top of what are people's current concerns, dreams, all this kind of stuff. And I put that out on networking communities I'm part of and things like that. And literally probably 9 out of 10 women who I end up on a call with say at the start, I thought I was going to bottle it. I can't believe I've come onto this call. I really thought I wasn't going to show up. And isn't it crazy that it takes such bravery and courage just simply to talk about something which the vast majority of us experience, and which the vast majority of us wouldn't be here without, you know. But yeah, even people who go all in and book one-to-one coaching are very nervous at the start, but they're prepared to go there because that's the whole point of talking to me. So it's quite different. Your client.
Well, I find as well, we have this initial meet, and then a month or two, or it might even be a year down the line, I get another knock on the door, and it's like, I get it now, or I'm ready now. And it's like, that's fine, you know, it's fine. Having a conversation with my grandmother yesterday. Are they living in sin? What do you mean? You know, there's still so much of that. And that's what I mean. It's that undercurrent, isn't it? That undercurrent of energy that we have as a platform to work off of. And even though you shrug it off, it's still kind of there, indoctrinated into the psyche. You know, I'm not religious, but when I was younger, I went to a Church of England school. It was very much, you know, the afternoon hymn sessions was all about God. We learned about sins and whatnot, and so that does stay there, doesn't it? Do you find religion impacts your work a lot, Ruth?
Yes. I don't want to give a proportion. Maybe let me say half. Maybe half of the women I speak to who have sought me out for, at the very least, a discovery call, even if they don't actually go on to coaching, or just want to have a one-off chat about something, etc., have come from a Catholic school background. Now, there are a couple of coaches out there, sex coaches, who specifically sex coaches and sex therapists, if there's big trauma from that, who specifically deal with clients from that kind of background, because I don't want to say lessons, because lessons should be something positive. The stuff that they have been taught has just had such a huge impact, not only on their access to sexual pleasure, but on their health and well-being overall. And a big one is vaginismus. I've spoken to several women from Catholic school backgrounds who have said, oh, well, I've never really enjoyed sex, and most of the time I can't have it. And they have thought that it's so that clamping shut of the vaginal muscles is vaginismus. Almost impossible, or almost impossible, and very painful to attempt penetration. They don't even know that's a medical thing. So I'll listen and I'll ask some questions, and I'll say, okay, so I am not a medical specialist, but everything you've just told me suggests you've got a condition called vaginismus. Have you heard of that? And they'll go, no. And I will point them, first of all, to the NHS website. And the shock and relief, they'll be like, oh my God, I thought it was just me. And sometimes I say, I thought it was because sometimes I want sex, and that's a sin. And they haven't sought help because they've thought, as I say, it's just them, and it's because
it's a sin.
You know, and I'm like, all they needed to, if they had just simply been able to go on Google or to ask some basic health advice, and they would have realised this is a medical condition which sadly is quite common, but that does have a treatment protocol. And sometimes these are women in their 30s, 40s. And yeah, I think that kind of upbringing can not only stop sexual pleasure, but stop us learning about our bodies such that we can take care of those bodies. But as I say, there are a couple of coaches who deal specifically with that. I'm fortunate enough not to come from a faith background which restricted my ability to access my own pleasure. And so often work with that kind of group does need to cross over into actual therapy rather than coaching.
Ruth, do you know what you just said there about these women not having access to not only pleasure but their feminine health? What downloaded them was, well, of course not, because if they did, they wouldn't be able. They would be free. And when we look back at that, and we see it come up now, you know, we see these powerful women stepping up, and now we're getting the abortion rights changed. Now we're getting people stand up in regards to. So again, we're getting the knock-on effect of pulling down that power of a woman, because if she gets too big, then how do we control her? And I come back to what you said at the start, the fantasy of not knowing what is true, what is a reality, what is out there for me, what can I receive? That just went through my body, believing that I am at fault for something, that actually, if we looked into this and these women were pleasured and they felt able to receive that pleasure, that maybe this wouldn't happen. Honestly, that just goes into my heart and my gut. And I think there are so many women out there. And again, it's when I talk about the menstrual cycle and the beautiful opportunities that it offers, when so many women say to me, but it's an inconvenience. What do I need to know about period for? Oh, for goodness sake, like why? Well, let's look at what's going on every month for you. And we see these amazing self-sabotaging rituals that occur every single month. How would you feel if that didn't happen? Oh, well, it would change my life. Right, here we go. That's what your period's going to do for you. It's going to change your life. Your sexual energy is going to elevate your life. Isn't that what life is all about?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, Ruth, do you know what? I think I'm going to get off here and go and masturbate. Thanks, Ruth. There was another topic that I spoke to Ruth briefly about last night, but I feel that we need to go off. Ruth said she would like to look into this in more with more time. So I'm not going to bring it up, but I would love for you to come back, Ruth, in the new year for us to discuss this. And again, it's around sexual energy, and what I have seen of this current experience that's going on is that it's a misunderstanding, like so many things in regard to the feminine and female health, power, all that. It's a misunderstanding. And if we can understand our sexual energy like Ruth does so beautifully, then perhaps we wouldn't be put in these situations and we would understand them more clearly. So how does that sound, Ruth? Would you be up for coming back in the new year? Is that all right?
Yeah, love to.
Wicked.
Yeah.
All right, darling. Nice one. Well, Ruth, thank you so much for joining me, love. It's been awesome. And I look forward to seeing you new year. Have an awesome Christmas.
You too.
All right, darling. Nice one. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. We will be back next Friday. I'm not sure if this is the last one or not, but it's Faye and myself. I'm sure we'll have something very juicy to discuss. So please tune in then. Take it easy.